Welcome,
Welcome.
Housewives of True Crime.
How are you?
I'm good. Before we get started, Gretchy, I wanted to remind everybody, if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on any platform, now is a good time to follow us so that you can get our stories every single week and not have to look for us. Or if you also, can't get through the story, a lot of times your phone will just like ditch the podcast you were listening to if you just kind of found us. So you don't want that to happen either. So just
finish the date. We want to keep seeing each other.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, let's take this to the next level. Let's give it a follow.
It's not
Let's go steady.
Match.com.
Yeah.
So my husband just got an email, by the way, from
we
Match.com.
put out. Come on. What have you got to lose? We put out every week. We don't even take a week off.
It's true.
Yeah.
That is true story, Morning Glory.
Yeah.
We actually put out twice. We have we have a Patreon.
I mean, come on.
Bonus content every single Thursday.
Yeah, you really don't have to buy the cow to get the milk for free with us.
Well, you kind of do if you go to Patreon.
Well, I mean, for extra, yeah. For, there, well, of course. That's the thing around that. So is life, right? Only on your birthday. Come on.
It's cheaper than a gallon of milk. Anyways,
it's cheaper than a gallon of milk.
Mm-hmm. But
yeah, that's what we're talking about.
So I want to make a correction really quickly to one thing. I said that Traders was on Paramount Plus, and it is not on Paramount Plus. It's on Peacock and Peacock. Yeah. And fortunately for me, I have both streaming services. So just kind of flip-flop from back and forth. And I was lucky enough to see Gretchy this week, and we had the best time and want to tell everybody about it. Gretch?
Yeah, I do want to tell everybody about it. Let's start with we went for lunch, and you can tell Tab's husband is busy AF, right? Because he's like so happy to be there and see me. And then I remind him that he gets to see me the next week. And he's like, great. I'm like, and guess what? It don't stop there.
The week after
the next week too. Yeah. 3 times in 2 weeks.
That's a lot. That's a lot of Gretchen.
I know. It's a lot of me. Yeah. He's going to get his fill.
It's true.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Yeah. So we met for lunch, and then we went over to the Paramount Studios where
iconic through the gates.
Yes.
Checked in.
Gave our IDs.
Our names were on the list. You know, that always gives me a little anxiety. Yeah.
And they were also on our chair, Gretchen. So we were big time.
I noticed that.
I know.
Yes.
So that was fun. Our friend Tokes is on the show Frasier. And let me tell you, it is so good, you guys. If you have not watched, it's the best sitcom. And it kind of brought me back to sitcoms because we're so into, and I know you guys are also, we are so into watching the docuseries, like we just kind of get like entrenched in that. But watching a nice sitcom that is funny and the humor is great, but it's also kind of like a smart comedy.
It is a smart comedy, and it is a refreshing brain for your break when all you do is crime.
Yes.
And obviously y'all listen to crime, so maybe you need a brain break here and there. I just was so blown away by watching them all. And sorry, I know she's our girl, but she really stole the show.
Oh, she totally did.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody else on the cast. But just watching her go, you see all the outtakes and everything, and just in and out of character so many times. It was so good. They're all actually they all were just, it's really impressive. It's like going to theater or something where you're like, really get a taste for how much talent it takes to be a professional actor.
Yes. And then
and I'm jelly.
I know. Doesn't it make you want to be an actor for a minute?
Yes, I think I could do it. Except, you know what I always think like I can't do is
Look
did
at
you
the
see,
camera.
they've got to stand on look
Although
at the
you
camera.
don't
Yeah,
look
I'm
at the
not good at
camera.
that.
Actually,
Yeah.
so you might be really good at it because every time we take a picture, I'm like, Gretchen, look at the camera.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to the picture part, okay? But is the standing on the marks when
I know.
they make people like redo it over again because they're not standing in the right spot, and I'm like, oh God, I would have diarrhea all the time because I would be standing on the
Oh,
wrong mark. I can't do two things at once.
yeah.
That wouldn't
And
be
you can
working for
kind of
me.
tell because the camera angles, if somebody's not at the right spot, they're kind of in the other person's like, space or cutting part of their face off the camera. So, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
really
Oh,
cool.
I want to talk about the best part of the show. I mean, not the best. It wasn't the
Oh,
best part of the show, but
wait.
it was my favorite thing.
Was it before we got there and we were walking
It did
in?
happen and it continued on.
Oh my God.
And now it
Okay.
is going to live into perpetuity
Uh-huh. Okay.
via
Yeah.
digitally.
Okay.
Yeah. You care to tell?
Yeah, well, let me just tell you the first part. Okay, so it's hot in LA right now. So I had to get on an airplane at 6 a.m. and I wore a little like romper because I knew we were going to lunch and it was warm. And then the studio is freezing fucking balls cold. And so I needed to change, and I changed in the car into jeans, but I had like really holy jeans, like rips all down the front, and there's like a small rip in the back near my butt, but not big enough to like really.
Side note, I just want to say you always do this to me. I always like, what are you wearing? What are you wearing? And I'm like, I'm going to wear something professional and, whatever. And Tab's like, yeah, that sounds good. Do that. And then she shows up like Miss Cool Girl with like, her cool sneakers and ripped jeans. And then I look like the dork standing next to her. And I'm like,
you looked great.
Thanks.
I thought you looked great.
You set me up all the time. I'm not gonna listen to you anymore.
Okay. Well, you looked really great to me. I did not know. So anyways, then we are walking into the studio after I have put my clothes on in the car. And Gretchen says to me,
you look like a whore. Your ass is hanging out.
I'm like, yeah, I know there's a little rip back there, but it's not hanging out. And I reached back and when I put my pants on in her car.
I know a whore when I see one. Yeah.
I thought my foot went through like one of the front rips, but instead it went through the back butt rip. And so it literally took like my entire, she's like, it kind of looks like looks like you're wearing shorts in the back. And she's like, don't worry, you can just cut them and make them shorts. And I'm like, dude, those are booty shorts. Like I would never wear them. It was bad. It was really bad. So it's very embarrassed, but not so much to change my clothes. So
not so much to, not
and then
too
in the
embarrassed.
photo, Gretchen posted.
We got to take so we got to take a picture. They were so kind to us with Tokes and Kelsey Grammer, and Tab sat her ass right next to him.
Mm-hmm. I did.
And her ass was hanging out in the picture because that's the hole rips all the way around.
I should send it to him. I think he'd enjoy it.
I did notice, we haven't even talked about this. I did notice you couldn't help yourself but say to him
that I met him before.
We've met before. Yeah, I saw you were having a moment, so I didn't want to interrupt. How did that moment go?
It went great.
Did he remember you?
He did.
Let me tell you what Tokes and I said behind your back.
Okay,
yeah.
tell me.
I just said, we heard you say it. And I was like, oh, here she goes. She can't resist. And she said something lovely like, I'm like, of course he's going to remember her. And she's like, I love her confidence. I'm like,
oh,
yeah.
goodness.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, so it's lovely. It's lovely if you guys have a chance to get out to LA and be in the studio audience of Frasier, then do so. And if you don't have a chance, then just watch it on Paramount Plus. Okay, we got to get into today's case.
Oh, okay.
Because it is summer.
You didn't answer the question, though. Did he remember you?
No, he did not remember me, but he did remember, or not that I know of. I mean, I was in a real fancy dress because we had met before at a gala in Las Vegas. The last time Neil Diamond played, actually, he did remember that. And he remembered the event.
Mm,
So,
well,
yes.
that was nice.
But, he's not going to remember me. I look like every other person, like a freaking Kate. Okay, let's go.
Okay. Okay.
Let's start this case. Unfortunately, we are going to Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska. It is the largest city in the largest state. Not the largest city. I mean, like, it's the largest city in
It's
the
the largest
largest
city in the state. Yeah.
in the state of Alaska. It's just shy of 300,000 people, which is actually almost half of the population of the entire state. It's a newer state. Alaska was incorporated later on in the United States. It's not cheap to live in Anchorage. The average house is $460,000.
It is cheap to live in Alaska, though. They pay you to live there.
Sorry, it's not cheap to live in Anchorage.
I know, but I'm just saying, I think it makes up for the fact that, you don't have to pay a lot of taxes.
True, but everything you need is 17% higher.
Oh, yeah, like going to Hawaii or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
okay, I get that. You got a homestead like the people on that show, Jules Family.
Mm-hmm.
That's
we have
where it's
homestead here in Texas also. And then the national average of income is 86,000. And
that's not chump change?
No, it's pretty good. It's actually a little bit higher than the average. And it's cold. It's really cold in Alaska.
I've been there. A day.
I've been to Anchorage, actually. So on June 2nd, 2019, 3 teenagers drove to Thunderbird Falls right outside of Anchorage to go on a hike. 19-year-old Cynthia, who goes by Cece Hoffman, was there with her best friend, Denali Brehmer, who was also 19. And along for the hike for this day was a 16-year-old male named Kayden McIntosh. McIntosh, MCI. So McIntosh, I think you would say. Denali, who sometimes went by Dakota or even Angel, which not really sure where she gets all those names from, and Cece had met in school a few years before. And according to Cece's dad, Cece didn't really have a lot of friends. She was developmentally delayed, as he would say, and she had kind of a hard time fitting in. So Denali was like her best friend and kind of a delight, even to her parents, that she had a friend. Denali had become friends with Cece while they were attending Service High School in Anchorage, and they really were hanging out ever since. Cece's parents received a text from Cece around 4 o'clock that night or that afternoon saying that she had been dropped off at Polar Bear Park in Anchorage after the hike. Timothy Hoffman, Cece's dad, was expecting her to come and pick up some money from him. They worked together. He was a handyman, and she had did a job for him. So Cece had told her dad that she was going to go splurge and go shopping for herself at the mall. Well, hours ticked by and Cece never showed up. The family, of course, began to worry because Cece was not that kind of girl that would, one, not show up and not call. So her parents did what probably every parent would do and go check at the Polar Bear Park. Well, she wasn't there either. This was very, very unlike her.
Remind me again how old she is?
19.
Okay.
She was 19, but she was
I know.
on the younger
side.
Yeah, I know.
Delayed. Yeah. So still the kind of kid that needs to regular check-ins.
At 19, yes.
Yeah.
And she had a super tight-knit family, okay? So it wasn't, she had lots of brothers and sisters and they were all really close.
Yeah.
So according to some reports, Cece's father was told initially that he had to wait 24 hours before reporting Cece missing as she was an adult. So he waited until the next morning, still no sign of Cece, to officially report her missing on June 3rd. Now listen, I have also been told that on your wedding, remember?
Yeah, I know. But at my wedding, when our friend went missing, she was a grown up and it was in Las Vegas. I feel like they get like missing grown up in Las Vegas like every minute, right? Yeah. Their cell phone battery just died, people. It's, so they're over it. But I feel like in Anchorage, when you know in your gut that someone is missing for no good reason,
Yeah.
I think that they still take it seriously. They just can't put
anything?
everything into action until it's been 24 hours.
Okay. I got it. Except for like, that's a bad idea because we know that people that go missing usually need to be found like within the first couple hours.
That is the conundrum, isn't it?
Yes.
And by the way, that friend that went missing in Vegas at my wedding, she's alive, but it was bad. Like Tab's gut was correct. She needed to be found.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. She's lucky. I feel like she is lucky to be alive.
100%.
Okay. So the missing person report stated that Cece was last seen on June 2nd wearing blue jeans, a hoodie, and tennis shoes. Right away, all of Cece's friends and family kind of started to look for her. Even Denali who had last seen her, was continuously, texting and following up with Cece's dad. However, later that day, Cece's best friend Denali's mother, biological mother, I think she was adopted out at one point or something like that. Her name was Nicole House. She contacted the Anchorage Police Department and gave them some real shocking information. According to Nicole, Denali and Kayden had shown up on her doorstep the day of the hike, the day that Cece was last seen, and told her that Kayden had shot Cece in the head and pushed her into the Eklutna River. I could totally be butchering that name, so if you live in Alaska, I'm sorry. As if that wasn't outlandish enough to this story, they had more. Denali and Kayden told Nicole that a man named Tyler that Denali had met online promised her $9 million to kill Cece. He told Denali that he was a millionaire from Kansas, sent her photos. He was a real handsome millionaire. And according to the story from Nicole, Denali and Kayden said they were going to just fake Cece's death, take some pictures, send them to the millionaire guy, collect the $9 million, and be on their way, except something terribly went wrong. Nicole said at first she did not believe them, thinking this was probably some like dumb teenage prank that they're like telling their mom, which seems really I don't know if anybody would ever tell me that, and I would think somebody was lying. But
yeah,
I also don't think that I could ever hear that from my child's mouth and think they were telling the truth either. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Nicole thought it was like a phony story, but it hit her when she saw Cece's father, Timothy Hoffman, on the news that night pleading for information onto where his daughter might be. That's when she contacted the detectives and gave them what information she had, that her daughter, 2 other teenagers went hiking, and then one of them was dead. Nicole didn't have any details like the location, just basically the basic information like I told you. But police were swift at locating Denali and Kayden and bringing them in for questioning. As they were individually interviewed, the story they dropped Cece off at the park after their hike quickly unraveled and the truth started to come out. During the initial interview, Denali said that during the hike to Thunderbolt Falls, the 3 teenagers decided to duct tape each other and take pictures of themselves tied up, for fun. Cece went along with it at first, she said, but then started to panic after she was taped up. When they removed the duct tape from Cece's hands and mouth, she told Denali and Kayden that she was going to call the police and tell them that she had been kidnapped and sexually assaulted. Denali just so happened to have a gun with her on this hike. And so, according to her, Kayden took the gun from her and just shot Cece in the head before shoving her into the river. Denali claimed that Kayden was the one who told her to text Cece's family about dropping her off at the park. And, at this point, she's super scared because Kayden just shot her friend and now Kayden has the gun. After some consideration, it was determined that Kayden, who, by the way, is only 16, would be tried as an adult, and they booked him right away on these charges. He was booked with first-degree murder and evidence tampering, held on $100,000 cash performance and $100,000 appearance bonds. And Denali was released, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. It is pretty crazy. It is just as a parent, this is just such a pit in my stomach because I just think these kids made so many bad decisions so quickly. And I'm so scared of my kids not understanding there's always a way out. You have got to tell someone or, do something before things escalate like that.
This story, Kayden is a kid and we don't do kids. And there's actually a couple, I'll just tell you, there's some more kid related things I'm not really going to talk about in this story. But I did think that this is a very good teaching lesson. I actually told this story to my daughter because I think you already know that this millionaire is probably not a millionaire, right?
Right, of course.
And when I was telling her the story, she was like, but he was a millionaire. Like,
yeah, they don't.
I was like,
get it.
No, he's not a millionaire, dude.
And it's not just that they actually will believe that. And by the way, Tab's daughter, like off the charts bright.
Yes. So I'm like, girl,
that is like really this isn't just a developmentally delayed thing.
No.
Like we all can like fall for stuff like that at a certain point of our lives. But also it's just something that has like always stuck with me is I read an article in a magazine about some girls that were at a house and one of them started projectile vomiting and the other girl did not go and tell her parent how sick her friend was.
Because she was nervous about it?
Because she was nervous and the girl died.
Oh.
I think these kids do not realize that dead is forever. And it's a real possibility. And it's such a fine line balancing. You want them to be scared to do something risky, but never too scared to tell you about it.
Mm-hmm. I know. So, well, Denali is the one that got taken by this millionaire, right?
Yeah.
Who was not developmentally delayed. Cece was the one that just went on hike, had no idea that this is even going to happen, right? But it is, I just think that all this stuff leading up we do have to talk to our kids about being vulnerable for whatever reason. This kid, Kayden, is 16 years old, falls for, I'm going to get to it, but he falls also for like the money trap, right? Where he's like, hey, the older, I was trying to think about this because I'm like, what would this kid, 16 years old, go do this for? One, money, yes, but maybe Denali, being the 19-year-old, was kind of attractive to him, right? Like, why do these 19-year-old girls, and I haven't looked at the picture.
I think any 16-year-old kid would want to hang out with the 19-year-old girl.
Sure. Yes. And Cece's super cute. So yeah, he's like, sure, I'll be in on it. Not even thinking like, what are the fucking consequences, dude?
Right.
Like, not only the moral dilemma that you're going to have for the rest of your life for doing something so awful. It's the worst sin of all sins. But above that, like, I don't know. So, and you're going to be tried as an adult? You asshole. The police immediately go to Thunderbolt Falls to search for Cece's body. And sadly, on June 4th, they located her downriver from where she had been shot, and she still had duct tape around her ankles. Forensic examination would determine that Cece was not sexually assaulted. It didn't take long, though, for police to determine that Denali herself was more than just an innocent victim in this story. And she was taken back into custody on June 7th. I'm assuming Kayden started really talking.
Yeah.
She was charged with the same crimes as Kayden, first-degree murder with evidence tampering, was ordered under the same bond amounts. And less than a week later, one of Denali's friends came forward with more information in 2 Snapchat videos. In the first video, Denali describes these events much as she did to the police. So Denali had this weird, obsession with what people were thinking of her on Facebook and Snapchat and whatever, and she was very, she talked about it, because she was like, I don't care what you fucking think about me, and I'm the victim. And then she came out with this other Snapchat video. In the second one, Denali talks in the camera, and she says, I just want to thank everyone that's been there for me my whole life these past few years. I effed up. I know I did. If I could take it back, what I've done, I can't. I'm sorry, everybody, my family, my friends. I guess you will hear from me when you hear from me, but I won't be back for a long time. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it. And so after being confronted with the new evidence, Denali's story then changed. In this version, Denali said that she and Kayden led Cece down to the riverbank off the trail and followed a path along the river until they came to a clearing. And that's when they overpowered Cece, covered her mouth with duct tape, and used it to bind her feet and hands. Then they took pictures of her in the bindings. They took the duct tape off Cece's face. Denali said that she told Kayden to shoot Cece because she just couldn't do it. And Kayden used Denali's 9mm pistol to shoot her in the back of the head. And then he pushed her into the river, where she washed down the river. Then Kayden and Denali both gathered up Cece's things, hiked back to the car, and they went to Polar Bear Park, where they sent the text to Cece's family. And then they drove less than a mile to another park called Lions Park, where they tried to burn all of Cece's belongings. On June 9th, 3 more arrests were actually made in connection to this murder. 19-year-old Caleb Leyland and 2 juveniles that were not named due to their ages. The Caleb character, he was promised $500,000 to use his car. And so he said, sure. Caleb supplied Denali and Kayden with the keys to his car so they could perpetrate the murder. He was charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. And then because of the ages of the 2 juveniles, I don't have their names or their charges. 2 days later, on June 11th, police identified another person of interest. This guy's name is 21-year-old Darren Schillmiller, and he's from Indiana. This guy, Darren, is the millionaire Tyler from Kansas. And you can guess, like I already told you, not a millionaire. And not the guy in the pictures either, Denali. He is,
of course not.
However, the guy that solicited her to commit this murder. This guy is a real bad guy. The worst of the worst. I'm not going to tell you all of his sick and perverted ways, but let me just tell you there's a ton. They have to do with children. And I'm not going to tell you because I don't talk about kids. And really, the story is about Cynthia. So that's what we're going to focus on here. Part of the deal with Denali was he was to send him pictures of an actual murder that he requested and some things with minors. And unfortunately, Denali did it. All of it.
I mean, how twisted is it? But it is necessary that we have to explain to our kids there are people who you can't believe anyone that you communicate with online. I mean, you shouldn't really believe people in life altogether. But
listen, I know that in more ways than one.
But you definitely can't, because they will ask you to commit murder with the promise of money, because that's like their sick, twisted kink.
Yeah. Yes.
That for no other, because kids can't imagine that would be somebody's motivation.
I know.
But it is.
I know. So a state arrest warrant was issued for Darren Schillmiller's arrest at $1 million bail. He was ordered to have no contact with Denali or Kayden in any way, and he was extradited to Alaska to face his charges. His charges included conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, solicitation of murder in the first degree, and tampering with evidence, and some more. Darren Schillmiller posed as a young, handsome lottery winner from Kansas using a fake profile picture and talked Denali into doing his bidding with promises of millions of dollars. And in reality, Darren was an unemployed 21-year-old who played a lot of video games while living in his grandparents' basement in Indiana.
It's the video games.
Please don't tell me that. My son loves video games. Shit.
Don't let him play the crazy ones.
I know. My God, I don't know. Shoot. He admittedly had and probably still has a sick and twisted fantasy or fantasies. And instead of getting help for them, he found this real vulnerable 19-year-old girl from Alaska who saw dollar bill signs over morals. Denali didn't realize that she had been catfished until after Cece had been murdered. By the way,
I know we're talking about how vulnerable she is, but it's still hard to believe that she would. Why would he want to pay her his money to kill her friend?
She knew that he had a sick fantasy of seeing somebody murdered.
Oh.
And he admitted his fantasies to her. And it wasn't just this. He is a really disgusting human. And I don't want to say that Denali is totally vulnerable either. I mean, I say that she is because she's 19. But at 19, I had a much stronger moral compass than
we were friends at 19. I'm pretty sure someone could have offered you $1 million and you would not have killed me. Yeah,
or do any of the other things that Denali did.
Right.
Besides kill her best friend, she did really awful other things too for this man. And so none of that. I don't think any of my children, even my 10-year-old, would do any of this crazy stuff. So where Denali got twisted in life, I'm not sure. But this Darren guy found her, and I guess, $9 million sounded real good to her. But like $9 million, like, girl, people don't just have, like, not even a lottery win. I mean, unless you're like one of those crazy, like, bonus lottery, whatever, the Mega Millions. But after taxes and all this stuff, like, people don't have $9 million to give away ever.
Right.
And you should not kill for money.
Even if it was real,
even if it was $30 million or $100 million or a bazillion.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So cell phone evidence, along with statements from the suspects, showed that the murder was pre-planned and very calculated. The teens had started planning this murder up to a month before they carried it out. Each of the 5 members, remember there were minors involved, was promised money by Denali for their part in the killing. It took years for this case to be tried. Just like in Wade's case, which also happened in 2019, I think that it, just whatever happened with the court systems. So it didn't get tried until 2023. And on February 15th, 2023, Denali, who was then 22 years old, pled guilty to murder in the first degree. She went into the plea without an agreement on how long the sentencing would be. And the judge could send her to prison for no less than 30 years, but no more than 99 years. Darren Schillmiller followed suit and went to trial on August 4th, or not trial because he actually entered a guilty plea too. On August 4th, 2023, he entered the plea of guilty to a single charge of soliciting the murder of Cynthia Hoffman without a sentence agreement as well. And he faced at least 5 years, but no more than 99 years in prison for his crimes. Caleb Leyland, the one that had the car, gave the keys to the car, he pled guilty to one count of second-degree murder on November 22nd, 2023. And unlike Denali and Darren, Caleb's legal team worked out a sentencing agreement with the state with a maximum term of 75 years with a 25-year suspended, which is a long freaking time, dude, to give your keys.
Yeah, but I mean, he did accept that money, or the idea of this money, that something
for murder
horrific was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it is, just because you weren't physically there, you enabled it to happen.
He could have stopped it.
Yeah, he could, and he could have stopped it. So
Yeah.
I do think you need to do some time.
Kayden McIntosh pleaded guilty on May 17th, 2024 to the murder of Cynthia Hoffman. His legal team also worked out a sentencing agreement, leaving him facing a sentence of 30 years to 85 years. Sentencing began with Darren Schillmiller going before the judge first. He faced Anchorage Superior Court Judge Andrew Peterson. In over 3-day sentencing hearing, expert witnesses testified, and Cece's family gave their victim impact statements. A psychologist testified that Darren had a low IQ and the intellectual functioning of a child. His defense attorney asked for the sentence of 50 years with a chance of rehabilitation. The prosecution fired back that he was manipulative and was sophisticated enough to talk Denali into committing this murder for him. In a bid for leniency, his lawyer, Reagan Williams, requested that because of his diminished mental capacity, he be sentenced to 50 years. He read a statement from Darren apologizing for what he had done, and he said he felt horrible every day since the death of Cece. Cece's dad, Timothy, told the court that she was his right-hand man, and she helped him at his job as a handyman and various work. He described Cece as a happy girl who was just focused on making friends and who really loved her family. Timothy described how he and his wife had been unable to sleep since their daughter died, leaving them and all of his other children devastated. And during the hearing, Timothy actually placed a poster-sized portrait of Cece next to him in the seat at the courtroom, which I kind of love.
Yeah.
Judge Peterson said that this case was extremely sad and shocking, and that it had a ripple effect throughout the community. Cece's family and everyone who worked on the case would be changed forever because of it. The judge said that Darren was the master manipulator who got a rush from killing, stating that he did it for power and control and for his fetishes. The judge also said that Darren could have stopped the murder at any time. He went on to say that Darren was clear danger to others, which I totally agree, and that he enjoyed it. He determined that for his crimes, Darren met the criteria to be the worst offender, and that garnered a longer sentence for his part in the crime and coinciding with his plea to guilty, Darren received the sentence of 99 years, the maximum allowed by Alaska law, which is great. I'm so happy for that. He will be able to get parole after he serves 45 of those years, which will be when he is 71 years old. And when he was led out of the courtroom, Timothy Hoffman told him, "I hope you rot in hell." And I freaking do too.
Yeah.
While Timothy describes himself as a believer in Jesus, which he is, he has like a motorcycle club for Jesus. Like he's real strong believer. He said he just could not forgive himself to forgive. He could not bring himself to forgive his daughter's killer, saying, "How can you forgive someone that takes the most important thing from you? And that's my children. No matter how old they are my children." And then he said, "One down, 5 to go," referring to the other people that, needed to be taken down. On February 12, 2024, Denali, who was now 23, was sentenced. Prosecution requested the maximum of 99 years, and her defense team asked for a 80-year sentence with 20 years suspended. Evidence presented at this trial included a note written on Denali's phone that said Cece was very trusting, and then it says her fault, also very gullible, noting that having traits like that would make it easy for her to lure Cece on this hike. Denali's defense team referred to her as vulnerable, saying that vulnerabilities were manipulated by this guy, Darren. They also brought up some things that happened to Denali while she was a kid. She was sexually assaulted. She also had a pregnancy from the sexual assault and had to give up a baby for adoption. So I'm not taking away that her life maybe was not the best growing up, but better.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like she has like some kind of, to be like that, able to disassociate that much from your friend. I think some of those things are ingrained regardless of your childhood trauma, or maybe just sparked by it, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I would have a harder time with her, I think, if it was my child, than with the mastermind, because this person knew her and wanted to harm her,
Yeah.
like how could you? It also, I have some children with some differences, and we have had friends don't always come easy. And we had an experience with one that was like a compulsive liar, this child.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really it's come up a lot, but I'm like, I know you're young and you just want a friend, but this
is not the one.
Liars are dangerous.
Yeah.
Dangerous, and you have to stay away from them.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So the judge said this was intentional, premeditated murder for hire. You plotted with the other co-defendants to kill somebody you never. Assistant District Patrick McKay said that while Brehmer may not have fired the bullet at the end that ended Cynthia's life, she bore the brunt of the responsibility for this heinous act. She executed Cynthia Hoffman for murder for hire plot. She conspired with numerous other individuals in and outside of Alaska, including juveniles, forever altering everybody's life. She may not have pulled the trigger, but this never would have happened without her. And I agree. Judge Peterson laid down the maximum punishment allowed by Alaska law of 99 years in prison, with none suspended. I think that just means like you won't get out before that.
Yeah.
He also added that Denali to be labeled as the worst offender. It's a label given by the state declaring the worst of the worst. Kaylin Leyland and Kayden McIntosh have not yet had their sentence hearings. Caleb's is scheduled for in just over a month on August 23rd. Or no, less than a month, I guess, actually. August 23rd, 2024. And Kayden is scheduled not long after that in November November 14th, 2024. Denali and Darren have also received federal charges of child pornography unrelated to the murder of Cece. And evidence regarding the crimes was discovered during this investigation into the murder. As she did the murdering, Cece, Denali acted under the direction of Darren in all this case. Upon conviction, they will serve their federal prison sentence in Alaska at the same time for these pornography charges. At the same time, they will serve for their murder. And then Gretchen, in a more tragic twist of fate, this last month in June, Sunday, June 2nd, 2024, on the 5th anniversary of Cece's murder, her dad, Timothy Hoffman, 58 years old, was killed after losing control of his motorcycle during a memorial ride for her.
Oh my God.
Yeah. In Wasilla, Alaska, his bike left the shoulder of the road and rolled into the center median. Helmets are not required to be worn in Alaska, and Timothy was not wearing a helmet at the time. Timothy's wife, Barbara, who goes by Jeannie, was riding on the back with him and did have a helmet on, and she sustained serious injuries. She even still had a skull fracture, even with the full face helmet. She also broke her back, and she had other broken bones. It was also the first time that Jeannie had ridden with Timothy on one of his memorial rides. In the years prior, she had just followed him in a car. She had her first surgery on June 3rd, and according to the article that I read, she's facing more surgeries. Timothy had faithfully attended every single court hearing in his beloved daughter Cece's case and advocated for her. And this year's ride was for celebration of justice because these two, were given their sentences. Cynthia was born October 8th, 1999. And despite her delays that left her, what they say is as a seventh grader, which listen, I think that's pretty good. My seventh grader seems like a 20-year-old. And she graduated high school. She also went to vocational school and started a young adults program. And honestly, I can only think that Cynthia just had a young soul and needed her dad up there in heaven with her. As tragic as it is, if you are a believer like they were, and they were very strong religious believers, like Tim is with Cece right now. So
yeah,
may they both rest in peace, and may the rest of the Hoffman family find peace in knowing that they're together and move forward with their lives with many blessings.
Well, that was a rough one.
I know. I told you. So. So sad, but let's teach our children to be kind and not make any kind of crazy, mistakes like this, and don't trust older people. Talk to your parents.
Or anyone.
Talk to your parents.
That pose as kids. Talk to your parents. Yeah, don't be afraid.
I know. I told Kyla this week, I was like, listen, I know you talk to your friends a lot. I get it. I was that way too. But I was like, your friends will always judge you. And you know who will not judge you? Your family. So if there is something that you're just kind of wondering and you don't really know, come to me first, because I will never judge I will never judge you. I will always love you, and I will never tell anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Just recently, my kid called their sibling a bad word.
Okay.
and she clearly had no idea what it was.
Okay.
And it's you need to, a reminder. It was you're not in trouble. Where did you hear that?
Oh,
Let's
I
talk
see.
about that. And then
Yeah.
it was like, if you don't know what it means,
Don't say it.
just
Or just
ask.
ask. Yeah.
Just ask. You're never going to get in trouble for asking,
Yeah.
but always ask before you use it.
Totally.
And I'm real glad you used it on your brother with me in the car and not anyone else.
Yeah. So true.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. If you would like to support us more, you can go to patreon.com/housewives of true crime. And we are there for you in your ear every Thursday. It also comes up as the Clink Clink Club on Apple or the Housewives of True Crime bonus crime on Spotify. So those are 3 ways that you can find us for our bonus content on Thursdays. The other way to support us is buy some of our skincare products, which, by the way, is also supporting you because they are magical.
True.
You can go to 5crimes, FIVE, crimes.com and find, if you need a little growth in your hair, you need it to feel lively. It's so good also in between shampoos. It keeps it like kind of clean and not so oily. It is not oily at all. We get that question a lot. And I promise you, it is anything but oily. It's actually refreshing and minty and lovely. And that's called Scandalous Scalp. Our illegal glow is so good for the summer. It keeps that moisture in when we're all dry and flaky. And if you're outside in the sun, it's such a good after sun care. So get your hands on some of that. And I think that's all. If you haven't given us a rating or review, please do so also on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to us. That really helps us. With the tech world of Apple and all that jazz. I think that's all. Thank you for listening, and we'll see y'all Thursday with our bonus content. Clink,
Clink, clink.
clink.